So this is close. I don't know whether this is my favourite. It's quite long, this, and I tell you what I like. I like the idea of someone turning on the radio in about a minute's time and thinking that they've accidentally fallen into a space-time vortex and woken up in 2017. What year was this? Do we know? 2016? No, I can't remember. But I remember the call.
I actually think in order to negotiate the issue...
Who's that shouting in the background?
It's my mum.
Okay.
Do apologise.
That's all right. It kind of goes with the territory for people who call themselves Brexiteers, doesn't it?
Yes. So basically, in order to negotiate with those people who want a second referendum, why don't we make it more democratic by introducing a PR election at the same time?
Right, yes. So we change
our
our entire electoral system by the end of March.
Well, it's not going to happen, but, it's...
What do you think you won, Robert?
What I would like is...
What do you think you won?
What I want is basically our whole governance, or the way that the wealth controls our country.
No. So what do you think? What do you think you won?
Well, I'm just about to explain that. I want...
no, not want. Won. W-O-N. What do you think you won?
I won. A slap in the government's face to show them that they...
that government's gone. So what did you win?
Well, that government is a reform of the continuous politicians that are put forward instead of actually giving people and...
Let's have one more go. Take a little pause and tell me what you think you won.
What I won?
Yeah.
I won a vote to leave the EU.
No, I know that bit, but what did you win? What was the prize?
To actually undress our politicians, if that's a better way to actually put it. Because
it's even worse, incredibly. You almost deserve credit for that. So what you won to undress our politicians. And who's going to be in charge of Brexit? Well,
the way that they're dealing with Brexit is not something I agree with, because, quite frankly, I would be negotiating.
But now we're back to silly rhetoric, aren't we? And ludicrous claims.
Well, no,
in terms of measurable, tangible benefits, what did you win?
What did I win? I won a deregulated country.
What does that mean?
Can deregulate itself. Well, it means that we can strip away from the EU laws that we don't like.
For example?
And for me, one of the ones is the plug system.
Pardon?
I know it's not very hugely, but we obviously use free-pin plugs in this country.
Yes.
The EU don't. And so basically it means that our safety aspects are a lot stronger than the generalisation of the EU.
But we're in the EU.
Rather than going... Pardon?
We're in the EU. So you think we have to leave the EU to get three-pin plugs?
No, it's about going back to some of the things where we are stronger at.
Yeah, go on. Talk me through the plugs thing. So what can we do now with plugs that we can't do as members?
We can still do it, but the manufacturers that we ship into
what
this
did you
country,
win then?
Compliancy to British law.
Compliancy to British law?
Yes.
Right.
So when you bring something into this country, it has to comply to the UK.
That's what happens already. That's why we've got three-pin plugs, you see, and they haven't.
No, because they use plastic rather than metal.
The EU sets the base level above which we are all free to go, as the fact that we have gone proves. Mate, just pause for a minute and think about what you've just done. You've come live on national radio.
Yeah.
You've described yourself as a Brexiteer. You're getting told off by your mum in the background. And when I've asked you what you think you've won, you've said the right to have three-pin plugs that we already have.
It's also...
And it's 10:30 on Monday morning, mate. Simon Conway has the headlines. It's not 10:30 on Monday morning. It's 10:56 on Friday morning. 4 years later, 3 years later, you can sort of tell by how many furrows there are in my brow when these clips are recorded. I think I look less furrowed now than I did in the middle of that era. It's hardly surprising, isn't it? I also had a handprint on my face at one point because I was palming my face so often. So it's not just requests from my show. There are other moments in the media where the truth managed to just peek through the layers and layers and layers of lies, misinformation, propaganda, racism. You remember the Breaking Point poster that Farage unveiled shortly before Joe Cox was assassinated by a far-right terrorist? The other media did, or the BBC, pretending that it was impartial to have a 50-50 argument between someone who was demonstrably wrong and someone who was demonstrably right, culminating, I alluded to it earlier, a couple of you weren't familiar with the example, culminating for me in a television studio when I had the opportunity to interview the former Director General of the World Trade Organization, and one of the producers on the program said to me, of course we'll have to get someone from the other side. And I said, what is the other side? Pascal Lamy used to run the World Trade Organization, and we're having a conversation about people like Jacob Rees-Mogg claiming that they know what would happen if we were to trade under WTO rules. So we'll ask the man that used to run the WTO what that would mean. What does the other side look like? There is no other side. I try to think of a simile, an analogy. What else would it be like? Here's the man that runs something telling you what it does. Oh, yes, but we need someone from the other side. So I said, who have you got to go up against the former Director General of the World Trade Organization? And do you know who it was? Literally, so I'm sitting in the Newsnight studio saying, who on earth are you going to get to argue with the former Director General of the World Trade Organization about what the World Trade Organization actually is and actually does? And do you know who it was? I can hear some of you shouting at the radio. I'll give you a clue.
Let me get this right. You're claiming that we could leave the EU, which will mean, because you've made a big song and dance about it, ending free movement of peoples.
It wasn't Andrew Neil.
Not apply to the United Kingdom, but we would still access the single market on the same basis as we do now.
We would continue to trade tariff-free because it's in their interest even more than ours. And just to be clear...
So, let me try and get you to be clear, because it's interesting.
So there it is. Andrew Neil there in his pre-GBB's meltdown, and Andrea Leadsom before she was made a dame for services to British politics, the latter demonstrating abject ignorance of almost everything. And yet, the BBC decided that they needed to put someone like her up against someone like Pascal Lamy. Incredible. But here is another example from elsewhere in the media, because we can't take all the credit on this programme, of what happened when you actually dug a little bit deeper. This is Channel 4 News from back in the day.
It's all about immigration, right? It's not about trade or Europe or anything like that. It's all about immigration. It's to stop the Muslims from coming into this country. Simple as that.
Do you think you voted to leave the EU to stop Muslims coming to the country?
To stop immigration.
Right.
But the movement of people in Europe, fair enough. But not from Africa, Syria, Iraq, everywhere else. It's all wrong.
How's that working out for you? It reminded me of Steve in Harrow, which was one of the calls that walks that tightrope between being hilarious and quite chilling. Because these are Nigel Farage's people. And arguably there are now more of them than there were before he sold Brexit to the country.
I live in Harrow.
Yeah.
When I go down to Harrow, and this is not being racist, James, because that term is so easily used and very loosely used. When I go down to Harrow, and I've lived here for 30 years, I walk into Harrow Shopping Centre, and I swear to God, I don't know where I am. I've got Polish, Romanians, Bulgarians sitting outside coffee houses doing sod all day. I've got every nationality under the sun, and it's lost its identity. When I go into Norfolk Park Hospital, and I went in there 3 Sundays ago because I had to go in an emergency, I walked into the accident and emergency, as I said to your researcher, 120 people in there. I was lucky if I saw 3 or 4 white faces. It's okay if you live...
Now that is racist.
No,
that last bit is.
It's realistic.
No, it isn't, because you're forming an opinion of people or their value based on their colour. There are people who don't have white faces who are just as British as you and me, Steve.
Perhaps there are, James, but if...
Well, no, they all are.
You go down
and that's... name me the European Union... Steve, mate, let's not do this. Let's do it nicely. Just tell me the European Union country that is populated by non-white people.
Couldn't tell you.
Well, have a go. Have a little think.
Say the question again?
The European Union countries, because we're talking about your reasons for leaving the European Union, and then you mentioned the fact that there weren't any white people in Norfolk Park Hospital. So which European Union countries are essentially non-white?
Probably none.
So why are you talking about those people then?
All right. Let's backtrack.
Yeah, let's, mate. I'm happy to let you do that.
No, let's backtrack. But it is still a valid point, James.
Not in the context of a conversation about the European Union, Steve.
Yeah,
and I'm afraid that if you are judging people according to their skin colour, then you are, and I say this with love and reluctance, then you are indulging in racial prejudice.
But James is.
So I don't care what colour you are.
Yeah,
I don't say. I'm never going to say to Beth at the end of the programme, we had too many black people on today, or we had too many white people on today.
But it's not all about. It's not all about white people, white English people. We're going off tangent.
Well, no, you did, mate. I'm just reining you back in again. So crack on.
It's not all about the racist issue. It's just about the fact that the country has lost its identity.
What does that mean?
And that. Well, what does it mean? It means that what I've just said, that...
You've just said that you don't like seeing brown faces at the hospital.
Okay, no. Is it right then, James? Let's give another example, right? I might be digging myself a big hole, but...
I'll pull you out, mate, I promise.
Right. But the point I'm trying to make, if you went down to my local, and I'll give you an absolute point here, if you went down to my local supermarket, I won't name which one it is, okay?
Yeah.
And one of my sons tried to get a job down, or two of my sons tried to get a job down there in a few years when they were in between university and going from college to university. At one point, James, there was 23 tills open, and 22 of them, okay,
yes, mate,
had Indians or Pakistani people.
But we're talking about the European Union, Steve.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, James, is this is where it's all coming from. And when I mentioned this to the manager, okay, the manager said to me, we have to reflect the local community. And the point I'm trying to make, James, and you're trying to, to a degree, defend me, but to attack me, is that right, James?
Mate,
that is why people have voted out of Europe.
Because we've got too many brown people on the tills in Harrow.
It's not about having too many. But when I was
what is it then, Steve? Just mate, slow down a little bit. Because if you're not complaining about there being too many brown people, why do you keep talking about the number of brown people in the hospital and the number of brown people in the supermarket?
The reason I'm saying that is, James, is because that is why people voted to leave Europe, because of Great Britain.
I don't disagree with you. No, it's not because of Great Britain losing its identity. It's because people are frightened of brown people.
No, it's not about it. No, James.
What difference does it make to me? Just help me out here, because I can kind of get my... Just because I work on the phones every day, so I have no idea what colour anybody is. Steve, stop talking. Stop talking just for a moment, my friend. All right? Why does it matter to you what colour the person that you buy your milk off is?
Well, it doesn't matter the colour that the person I buy my milk off, James. But the point I'm trying to make is why people voted out of Europe.
I'm not arguing with you. They voted out of Europe because they think there's too many brown people in their hometowns.
Is it unfair then, James, to say that when I mentioned what I said about the local supermarket, that
and the hospital,
when I'm told, and the hospital, but let's go to the supermarket. When I'm told that we have to reflect the local community, is that not racist, James?
No, Steve. Bless him.